Hello, everyone. This is Rodrigo from CampusLink. Today, we have a very special co-host. This is Alexis, and we're going to be discussing something very important, the Black History Month. So, Alexis, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Rodrigo, for giving me the opportunity and the platform to discuss Black History Month. I'm Alexis, the founder of the Black and African Diaspora at the VU. I'm also a third-year computer science student, and I am the head of education for the Student Council of the Faculty of Science. And today I am here with also a special guest, and I will let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I am Malik, president of Black and African Diaspora. I'm a third-year AI and philosophy student, and most of the time I can be found at campus.
Thank you very much, Maliki. And today we're going to be discussing some topics based on the Black History Month. And without further ado, I would like to ask you what Black History Month means to you.
For me personally, if we look at the Black History Month, it means the recognition of Black people, especially in America, and what they went through, slavery and things that they went through. So I think Black History Month is the month to look back in history and see how they suffer and how we use that in our advantage. Because please don't forget one thing, like what Martin Luther King said, that he has a dream that one day, like we also be as Black people in class with white people, which is obviously the case now. Yeah. So I think the history is very important to look back at.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think I have a similar definition of Black History Month. I think it's also important, as you said, to look back on what our ancestors did for us. And that's the reason why we're here today. But I also think it's very important to remember that there are things happening in the present right now. So for me, Black History Month is also the opportunity to continue to advocate and encourage people like us and minorities who are often pushed to the margins, and continue to represent and acknowledge those who are doing the work right now. While we commemorate the past and we are thankful and grateful for what our ancestors did for us, I think it's also important to think about the present and acknowledge what's happening right now. And I will also like to, because I often hear people say that the Black History Month is slowly losing its value, because most people use this month to especially emphasize on the bad things that are happening. So, for instance, when you hear about racism and police brutality, during this month, it's mostly like an emphasis. So you hear more about this kind of issues right now. And I would like to ask you if you agree with the fact that emphasizing mostly on the negative parts of our history is reducing the value of Black History Month.
I agree with that statement, because if we look back at the slavery, like emphasizing on the bad things that happened during slavery doesn't mean that the slavery loses its value, because like it's something that happened that is a fact that we should look back at that and discuss that and make sure that, because one thing they always tell us, if you learn from history, you can make sure that you don't repeat the same thing in present or in the future. If we look at the negative things that have been happening to Black people in Africa or throughout the world, we can learn from that and recognize like what kind of things that is happening there, so we can make sure that doesn't happen again in the future. So I think it's really important that we put emphasis on racism and brutality to see that, okay, why do they do it? How do they do it? What is the reason that and then we make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I agree with you on the fact that we should not forget what is happening, like the negative parts, but I also think that we should not dwell on that, because each time I go on the news or I search Google and I search Black History Month, I only see bad things happening. I only see police brutality. I see cases of racism. Like, I never see something that's positive about what's happening. But for instance, I think that we could use this month to also talk about upcoming Black businesses. We can support them, or look at Black initiatives. For instance, there's this PhD student at the VU who came up with this algorithm that finds more Black faces, because we all know today that looking at algorithms, especially in machine learning, they are not really trained enough for Black faces or people of color. And I think these are the kind of things that we should also not forget. So while we keep reminding ourselves that we have, of course, suffered and that there are bad things happening, I also think that it's important to look at the right side of the picture.
I agree with you. We should also take it into account, like learning from the bad things that happen. We can make sure, okay, what are the new things we can change? For instance, what you said, that someone that develops an algorithm that can recognize also Black-skinned people, because I also have the same issue with the face recognition library. Sometimes if I don't have enough light in the room, it doesn't recognize me. Those are things we should work on, and then make sure that they do not repeat again, because I can recall it again. It happens in the past that if you look for data sets with mostly Black faces, most of the time you come out with classified as criminals or something like that. You have the majority of that, but like the majority of normal people that are put in the data set, you don't have that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, talking about division within the Black community, I also want to talk about unity because I think it's important that as Black people, we come together since we have the same history and same background and we more or less have similar experiences. I would like to ask you, what is your view on Black unity? What do you think it is and how do you define it?
The main problem with Black unity, I think the history has biased us a bit, not a bit, maybe gradually, that we can not even speak of Black unity. First of all, we are divided and conquered. In Africa, everything has been divided, not by ethnic groups or anything, but just taking like a ruler and a pencil and saying, okay, this is the English part, this is the French part, this is the Portuguese part. And yeah, they were ruled there. And also, Black people has been spread over the whole world, like in America. And I think you even have some minority in Asia, if I'm not mistaken. However, the fact that we are not a collective makes it very difficult to speak of a major unity, because at the end of the day, everyone will try to look at the interest for their community or their country, or because they do not feel united. Sometimes I try to speak to people, like even in Holland, I take Holland most of the time as an example. I say, okay, even though we have something like Friesland, but in Holland, we talk about the nation of Dutch people. But if I go to Guinea, I don't talk about nations of Guineans. No, I have like tribes. The tribes speak like a different language, have maybe like different main food, but living together. So like we can be united by country or by name or by skin color, but it is difficult because we still all have this mindset. I'm from a different tribe, I speak like different languages, I have different way of living. I don't know if I can 100% speak of Black unity. Even if I look through the history of the Black Revolution, you also had people that were not united. Some people were not okay with Black Panthers because some, like even Martin Luther King was not okay with it. We should do it peacefully. We shouldn't be fighting. So it is difficult, to be honest, like speaking of Black unity.
If I can comment on that, I think it's really interesting, the topic of Black unity, right? Because if you look at saying Black unity, is like saying, should this Asian, should we talk about Asian unity? So everyone, just because of their race, should be united, or should all the white people be united, or should we, of course we're talking about majorities and it's different when Black is a minority, but still, as you were saying before, there are backgrounds that Black people can come from, and it might be the case that race is not the most common thing that you can use to define of all those people, and maybe it's easier to define them by the tribes or by the cultural norms that they follow, the country that they come from. And even within countries, we have all these tribes, especially in Africa, that have completely different from each other. And so that's a very interesting topic with regards to the Black unity.
Yeah, I agree because I'm from Cameroon. And although we have the French and English side, the French side is 80% of the country and 20% is the English side. Within the English side, we still have different tribes. You have the Northwest and the Southwest. Within the Northwest and the Southwest, you still have the other divisions. So I agree that this is a very difficult topic, especially with our history, because from the start, we have already been divided. But I also think that, for instance, in an environment like this one, which is predominantly white, I think that it's important that people like us, Black people, should come together and say, hey, we have more or less the same experience, or we more or less have the same history. Is there a way that we can come together and empower ourselves? So I would like to ask you, Maliki, like in this ideal world where we didn't really have these divisions from this, how do you think that this Black unity can be achieved on campus?
Yeah, like especially when we contextualize it for the campus where you have a minority of Black people. So speaking of that, we can achieve Black unity by coming together and discuss necessary topics and see how we can help each other. So that's why I'm very happy with your initiative of creating this Black and African Diaspora, because you can see that we can come together and help one another out with our school stuff, problems that we have, or maybe any other things. And even the fun that we have together is also something we should appreciate, because you have to take it like this. Especially you, I grew up here, so I think I'm a bit lucky that you straight from Cameroon and come and study here. You minority, don't know anyway, don't speak the language. If you're in a community like a Black and African Diaspora, you will feel comfortable with like-minded people that look like you, people that maybe have the same humor as you. So you will feel like, okay, I feel comfortable at the uni because I think I'm part of this. I can see people that do the same thing or say the same thing as I do. And I think that makes it important, because at the end of what they say, like studying is a social activity. You have to socialize with people, and then in my word, then chill a bit with people, and then come to peace of mind, and then you can study again. So it is important, like in an institution as the VU, to have a community that can bring minorities together so they can feel comfortable and do the effort they need to do for school itself.
I agree with you, Maliki, because for those of us who started in the Corona year, it was a harsh one. I spent the whole year online. I never came to campus, and the first time I came to campus was in my second year. I did not know anyone. I did not see anyone who looked like me. Even when I went to lectures, I only saw 4 people out of maybe 600 plus computer science students who looked like me. So it was very tough. And I think I agree with you that institutions such as this one should have communities or study associations, as they call them here, that could bring us together. So I'm really thankful for the Black and African Diaspora. I'm really thankful that I started it. I'm thankful for the board members. I'm also thankful for you, Maliki, because you are constantly supporting me and you're giving me the strength to keep fighting and keep pushing, because we are not yet at the full, but we're really working on that. And still within the context of Black unity, have you ever been in a situation, for instance, even on campus or back at home, where you've once doubted about Black unity, or you've once doubted of, okay, is this person really Black? Does this person really acknowledge that we had the same history? Have you ever been in such an experience?
Yes, unfortunately. I wouldn't say as a kid. Years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was this girl I knew. She was as Black as I am, but she was like from the Dutch Caribbeans. But it was around the Dutch feast they call Sinterklaas, and she felt urged to call me to Piet, which is Black Peter in English then. If I look back at that time and see what she said, I think like it was insane. Like, you as a dark-skinned colored person calling someone else that is dark-skinned color Black Peter. You telling me we segregated. I mean, you from Caribbean, I'm from Africa, so we're not the same people, even if we have the same skin color. So that's why I said, like, it is very difficult to identify like a Black unity because of the division. Someone from the Dutch Caribbean doesn't feel like an African. They don't have to feel like an African, but one thing is sure, that we have the same Black color. So maybe it is that we have the same background, but we don't have to be good friends. But we should acknowledge one's position in the society and try to protect one another, because that's also important.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting discussion, right? I would like to make a parallel with the use of the N-word in America. So nigga, we don't gonna cancel here. So that word in America is usually used among Black people, and it's completely fine if you use it with another Black person. Yeah. But if a white person uses that word for a Black person, then it's completely wrong. You get canceled, and it's really problematic. Do you see any parallelism with the Zwarte Piet? Do you think it's more problematic if it's a white person saying Zwarte Piet to a Black person rather than a Black person saying intention matter? Or
yeah, I think like you nailed it in your last line. You said, does the intention matter? I think like it's all about the intention. What you said, if you're friends among Black people, they can say, hey, my nigga, how you doing? Then it's all friendly. But I think also in the context of being friends, I don't know for all white people, but some Black people can still say you've been permitted to say the N-word. Another white person can say it. What I can say about the N-word, we all know that the N-word is heavily negatively connotated. So if we want to get rid of it, we should all together get rid of it, but we shouldn't also make selections who might say what. The problem I have with the N-word is that, for instance, I've seen like people, football coaches or someone that sings with a song that was made by a Black guy and says the N-word, and if that guy sings the word, they will be sacked from their football team. For me, that's stupid, because you make a song and you're saying, oh, you can listen to my song, but you cannot sing. But if that guy had all the intention to insult someone, to come to you like, hey, you nigga, get out of here, then you provoking something and you really want to insult someone, then you can take it serious. In of being friends and being friendly, I think most people I know will accept that.
Yeah, I also, most people I know will accept that. But then with intention, it's a bit difficult to know, because there's so many ways that you can interpret what someone is saying. So a thing can be out of context, and maybe my tone of voice is a little bit different, and saying the N-word, and that now you interpret it as an insult instead of a friendly way to call my friend. But it's quite of a slippery slope, right? When we start saying, intention is the only thing that matters, and it's a bit difficult.
Yeah, I said, because it is heavily negatively connotated, we should just get rid of it. Why do Black people really always want to use it, and they try to force other people not to use it? But that also doesn't make sense.
Maybe it's the Black unity. Maybe it's the sense of community, because it's a word that that are typically only used among Black people. So that only Black people can use it, and it gives you a sense of cultural commonality, right?
Yeah, but if you look at the proper meaning of the word nigger, even you as a Black person shouldn't use it.
Yeah, of course.
That's the thing. But yeah.
I also don't think that intention is the only thing that matters, in the sense that we know that the word nigger was used in the past as a very racist and offensive word. I completely understand if a Black person gets angry if a white person calls them nigger, because of course you don't know their intention. It could be misinterpreted. It could be a joke. It could be friendly. It could be anything. And I think that would trigger me. Like me personally, that would trigger me, even if your intention was not to insult me, but just the fact that we have this history going on and we know that this was a word that was negatively used. Honestly, I will be very offended. And I think that also white people should be aware of this, because of course it could be non-offensive, like the way Black people call themselves nigger. But I also think that it relates to what you're saying about Black unity, because we are using what they used to mock us to make fun of it and take it lightly. So I think this is something that I don't see a problem with if it's within the Black people, but I also agree that it could be confusing. We rather eliminate it, but I also understand someone who would get mad at the white person calling them nigger. So yeah, context, intention matters, but also the history we shouldn't forget also matters.
Absolutely. And in the context of your association, how do you think that your association might help to, for example, the integration of the Black community within the broader food community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people might argue that by creating an association, you are creating a silo, like an echo chamber. You're just like talking about the things that are interesting to the Black culture and Black history, but that actually creates kind of a ghetto that doesn't integrate with the rest of the food community. How would you reply to people that might think this way?
That's a very good question, because I get that a lot. And when I was starting the Black and African Diaspora, for me, it was first of all about improving ourselves as individual, because of course, individual people make up this community. And if I am a Black student at the VU, I don't feel well, my mental health is bad because I cannot relate to anyone. I don't have friends. This influences directly my output on the university. So this means that I will probably fail my courses. This means that I will probably not pay. This also means that the VU's reputation will decrease because they will have less number of friends in my particular year. So I think it's good for us as Black people to come together, to relate to one another, but it also uplifts us individually so that we become better people, or we have a better environment at the university in which we can focus on, in which we can be more productive, and which we can even have more effect on the VU as a whole. So I don't think this will negatively impact the VU in the sense of division, but I think instead it will make each and every one of us better people and happier people, even because mental health, as we all know, is very important and should not be neglected. So I think this is a good initiative that can bring a lot to the VU.
Yes, I completely agree with what Alexis just mentioned, because it is really important that students feel at home at the university. I believe the fact that studying is social activity. You do it together with other people, even though you get like an individual degree, but you still do it together. You go through projects, and a community like this can bring people from same study together, can help one another. If I'm a third year student and the first year student has question, they can just come to me because they know me. So there's no like barrier between us that they have to go over like a threshold, but they can just go directly to me like, hey, Malik, you've already done this. Can you help me with this? So we can also help one another throughout our studies and feel comfortable. As she said, it's influence your output. And I really agree with that.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. And also, because we're talking about personal experiences, but we shouldn't forget about what's going on in the world. For instance, when you look at the case of Tyron Nichols, who was a 29-year-old Black man who was bitten severely by 5 Black Memphis Police Department officers from Tennessee. And these 5 police officers approached him, took him out of his car. They stopped him, and he was trying to explain that he didn't do anything wrong. But they put him out of the car, they beat him up, they pepper sprayed him even, they tasered him. One of the pepper sprays entered one of the police officers' eyes, so he was able to escape from within 600 meters of the initial position of the stop. But still, they caught up with him and even called more people. They beat him up, and he ended up critically injured in the hospital. Keep in mind that this man had a 4-year-old son. He was also sick of Crohn's disease, which we know can give you a higher risk of having colon cancer. And yeah, like when you look at this particular issue, that this is a real world thing going on in the world today, 5 Black people beating up 1 Black guy who is obviously weak. So what do you think about Black unity? Does this make you wonder? What do you think about this issue?
I once listened to Denzel Washington, and he said the following. He said that throughout the slavery, the white man has divided us in a way, even during the slavery, making some black people better than other people. Because of this, there's something that occurs, which is jealousy. Oh, you have higher position in the white man society, so you can even tell me what to do because the white man told you to tell me what to do. So in a situation like this, the black person that has been given higher society will always like to prove to other people that are under him that he has been privileged by the white man to do what he's doing. Even if he or she has to disadvantage another black person to keep the white man happy, he will do it. That's what Denzel Washington said. So if I put that into this context, you have to see it like this. Those 5 policemen are like, hey, in this white community, I have the power to do whatever I want to do. According to them, they're executing the law and they are in a better position. This clearly shows that there's no unity because, again, the divide and conquer strategy works because you have been divided and particular people have been given higher position and they want to prove to other people that I'm better than you and you have to do what I say or I will do what the white man asked me to do and execute it. And unfortunately, then issues like this happen in the world, which is very, very heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking indeed because these police officers, even after being charged of murder, of assault, of misconduct, of even kidnapping, they still plead not guilty. So this means that they do not see what was wrong in what they did. And I also saw online that after they beat him up and he was severely wounded and bleeding, they started recording videos, still insulting him, cursing at him, laughing at the achievement. And one of the officers even shared the video to some of his department officers and even to his wife apparently. So when I look at this, it really makes me sad because often when you hear the stories, you hear that it's a white guy against a black person or white people against black people. But this is something that's happening within our community, within our own race. And yeah, and people, they don't feel bad about this. And it really makes me sad and sometimes makes me wonder if one day we will be able to achieve black unity indeed.
I hope, because as I said, like it is difficult to achieve something like that. And what Washington said, if you have the feeling, hey, I'm secured for life because in this white society, I've been at least given something that can make me better and have a better salary. And if I disadvantage that guy, I will still be a better person. Yeah, that's an unfortunate issue, but I can say that those are the consequences of slavery and colonialism. Believe me, those are really the consequences of colonialism. Because we still have hatred, and then we see that, okay, with the way we divided the jealousy, and it's difficult to unite us.
Yeah, I agree that it's difficult to unite us. And I think we're not the only ones who think like this. I think many other black people think that it's really difficult to unite us. So I would like to ask you, do you have any advice for a black person who wants to study at the VU or even who is already studying at the VU?
I would tell them, come and join us. We have the Black and African Diaspora. What else would you want? And it's not like the case you cannot join us and join another study or students association. Feel free. You can join multiple if you want to, but we really need input, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I wonder how black you have to be to join this student association, and can you join as a white person that is concerned about black culture, history, this kind of topics?
Yes, that's a good question because we have been discussing this topic, like the vision, how we're gonna set everything up. The name of the community itself, Black and African Diaspora, is very broad. First of all, you have to look at this as if we say Black Diaspora, so we forget the African, we include everyone like in the range of being black. So it doesn't matter whether white, black, or you have a Dutch, half something. It doesn't matter if you're from the Caribbean and ancestors before you, like you have 2 generations that we are whiter than the rest, and so you become more whiter. It doesn't matter. And we have like clear terms and conditions you can read before joining. As a white person, if you read our terms and conditions, you said, I feel 100% okay with this and I want to join them, free. Just submit the form and you're one of us. So we don't distinguish anyone. And the second part of the name of the community, African Diaspora, is not just for black people. So we also even have people from North Africa, South Africa. So everywhere, like every corner of Africa, we have people from Algeria, Egypt. We open for everyone that share the same mind as we do and has the same vision as we have.
I think it's also about how you identify yourself, right? Because you could look white and you identify yourself as a black person. Or you could be black and not African, you can join. Or you could also be white, but you have an African descent. So it's really about how you identify yourself. And if, as Maliki said, if you look at the terms and conditions, if you look at our goals and you feel okay with this, then you are also free to join.
Right, thank you.
And yeah, I like the advice that you gave to black students at the VU. Join us, the Black and African Diaspora. We are here to make your life better, to make studying a fun activity, and to also meet like-minded people. And yeah, we also organize events monthly, but right now this is a Black History Month. Feel free to join us. And if you want to be a member or participate in any of our activities, just look at the link down below and you can sign up.
Right. Thank you so much for today's talk. It was really inspiring. So I invite everyone to check out your student association and to learn more about Black history.